Welcome to Vintage Bricks. Today we're going to look at the classic set King's Mountain Fortress set 6081 from 1991. This was the last of the Lion's Knight major sets, but the first raised baseplate set of the castle area. We'll find this a fascinating set to review for a lot of reasons, so stay tuned, come on in, we'll have fun. So let's take a quick build so you get an overview here. To make it a little more interesting, I put a completed set on the right so you can compare it to. One thing I like about these older sets is that the instruction manual doesn't do a brick by brick rendition of where to put the pieces. You have to look at the pages and think about, what's changed between this page and the next page? And I think that makes the build a little bit more challenging and enjoyable. And they put a lot of thought into the set, obviously. First, it would be good to orient ourselves where the set is in the timeline of the castle theme. It's the Lion Knight Crusader theme. And a little blinking light coming up right there, about 1990, 91, is when the Fortress was released. First raised baseplate. Now, I think, that the Lion Knights or Crusaders was based on an English king, Richard the Lionhearted. Therefore, that's why we had all the lions. Now, Richard was off fighting wars for almost all of his entire 10-year reign in the late 1100s, so which might explain why there really was no king in these sets. So this next section is a little bit about medieval castle history and how it relates to our 6081 set. The question we're going to answer is, how do we take a set that's on a raised baseplate and incorporate it into all the sets up to this point that were on the fold-out design of castle walls? So let's look at a little bit of medieval history as a clue. So to try to solve this problem, I went to the internet and I found some mentions about maybe this castle is really what's called a keep, a little fortress. I said, oh yeah, maybe a keep. Well, what did they do with keeps? Well, what they did was they took the soldiers, and the soldiers went out on a flat plot of ground, and they built a mound, maybe 24 to 30 feet high. So they made a mound, and on top of the mound, they put their little castle, which is the keep. And in this sense, I'm thinking of our 6081, this fortress as being the keep. The princess was on top of the hill. Well, so far so good. And then they built a wall around the low ground where all the little people, the worker people, the villagers were surrounded by the castle. So the nobility could look down on their fiefdom and see how everybody was doing, make sure they're working hard. Now, the hill was called a M-O-T-T-E, a moat, not a water moat, but a moat. That's the name of the hill. And then the land inside the castle walls on the flat land was called the Bailey. So you had a moat and Bailey castle design. And so to me, this really solved the problem of what to do with this fortress. Turn it into a keep on top of the moat overlooking the Bailey. So I went to work. Now, I didn't have a bunch of worker bees, but I thought I could do this. And here's a little sketch I did of what that might be. Keep at the top, the hill, maybe stairs going down. Then we had the Bailey. And just in case you thought I was making this up, there is really a Motte-and Bailey. This is from Wikipedia. So this is a busy slide, of course, but in the middle to the right there is the 6081 set raised up on a little bit. So that's my Bailey or my moat, and then the wall around it. And you could, if you use your imagination and look really hard, you can see the princess in the middle, and she's having a great time actually watching a jousting match. Motte-and Bailey, we solved it. Okay, so now let's look at the features of the set. Let's go from top to bottom. At the very top, we have these crossbows. A double crossbow up here. This is coming in pretty handy to protect the fort. It's a nice feature. They had a good view of everything up here. I like that a lot. Then we'll spin around a little bit here, and let's take a look at the prison here. Now, pretty simplistic prison, I have to admit. I kind of like the brick-built ones better, but like those kind of conserving parts here a little bit. This is the hold where we can, store the castle treasure. I'm not sure why it's so close to the prison, but there it is. And spin around, and there's our ghost. And this is one of the funner parts of this build, this little room for the ghost to, come out at night at. So, like that. Now, the drawbridge and the door is probably not my favorite part of the set. A little simplistic, but it's, it's a keep. It doesn't have to be fancy. Now we're here. This is where I'm going to say there was some criticism of the set of it not being overly well finished. Not maybe the same type of finish we've seen in some of the other castle sets. Okay, with that criticism behind us now, let's take a look. Here's a little thing here, which is so you can do a technique pin down here. I tried doing that with another set. Didn't work as well as I'd hoped, but maybe you can figure that out. Now we're spinning around back. This isn't really a prison cell. Maybe the princess and her friends played in here. You could open it up. There's a little trap door, but maybe it's a fun trap door. You just slide to the bottom. So there we go. We'll spin it around a little more. All in all, a very solid set, especially for the first raised base plate set of the series. Okay, let's take a close look at the minifigs and some of the rare pieces to look out for. Here they all are. There's 6 minifigures, 2 horses, the barding for the horse. So a nice collection here. Now, one thing to look out for on this barding, which is amazing, is make sure the clips are intact. Clips are pretty important here. Big value here. Now, the soldiers are pretty standard fare, but try to get some that have a nice print on them, like this lion guy. Now, the princess, that was the first one to have the slope skirt. You can't really see it there as well. Here's our knight, almost like a black knight. And speaking of black, we have a glow-in-the-dark ghost, and that bird is very rare. So there you go. That's our key pieces of this set. So there's enough features here and interest that this is certainly, I would say, a must-have if you're collecting vintage castle sets.